Alright, this video is on subtracting mixed numbers with borrowing. So, last time we talked about subtracting mixed numbers, but we kind of ignored a certain type of problem, and I'll show you what I mean. So, let's start doing what we were doing last time. So our first step is we need a common denominator. 5 and 12, the only common denominator we can do is multiplying them together, or the lowest one we can do is multiplying them together. So that becomes 60. So this would both be times 5, that's still 8, and then 35 60th. Minus 4, and this one we do times 12 to become 60th. So that's 48 60th. Okay, so if we start doing what we did last time, we go 8 minus 4. I'm like, okay, that's 4. But then look at this. I have 35, and I want to subtract 48. I can't do that. That would go negative. It doesn't work. I can't have a positive 4 and then a negative part of the fraction. That just doesn't work, okay? It's kind of like if you've ever gone somewhere maybe to play video games or something like that, and you need change for the machine, okay? You might have a lot of dollars. You might have $5, but you don't have enough quarters to pay the machine. Okay, so you need to go get change. Same thing here. We have plenty to take away from because this is 8 and something, so I can definitely take away 4 and something. I just need some change, if you will. Okay, so I just need to get change for my bills. So I'm going to take 1 from this 8 to get some change. So the 8 becomes a 7, and the 1 I'm getting change for is going to be 1 whole. And 1 whole, in this case, if my denominator is 60, I can think of as 60 60ths. Okay, so 7 and 60 60ths is a really weird way to say 8, right? Because I have 7 whole, and then 60 60ths is 1 more whole. So that's really 8 right here. This number represents 8. But now I have 7 bills, if you will, and 60 60ths and change. So now I can take away from it some more. Okay, now I don't want to forget about the 35 60ths I already had though. Okay, so I need to make sure I include that in my fraction. So I had 60 60ths from the one I borrowed, plus the 35 I originally had. So altogether, 7 and 95 60ths is a weird hybrid way of saying 8 and 35 60ths. It's basically doing the opposite of what we were doing last time, when we would get these answers sometimes adding, and we had to fix it so that we didn't have these as our final answers, okay? So we have 7 and 95 60ths. This is still 4 and 48 60ths. But what's nice is, now I can do my subtraction. 7 minus 4 is 3. Then 95 minus 48, you can do that off to the side if you need to do the math. But the nice part now is I can actually do 48 subtracting from 95 with no problem. So I get 47 60ths. And make sure that's simplified, and it is, so that's my answer. Okay, so let's practice some more of these, but this is the type of problem we're dealing with, where the second fraction number, the numerator is bigger than the first one, so that there's not enough to subtract from, that we need to deal with something. All right, if you think you got the hang of it, go ahead and pause and try this one on your own. If you need another example, just keep watching and we'll go over this one together. So when you start with a problem, you don't know that you're going to have to do this. You start just normal like you normally would. You find your common denominator, in this case 15. So you're going along your business, thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I'm almost done the problem. All I have to do is subtract. You go 5 minus 3 is 2, but then, hopefully you realize, look, 5 minus 12, I can't do that. Be careful. A common mistake is people just flip it around and they go, well, then I'll do 12 minus 5. Can't do that. That's not the same thing, okay? So this is not right. Ooh, I just highlighted everything. So that's not right. I gotta erase that. Let's move this back up here. There we go. So I need to do some borrowing. I'm gonna get some change. So the 5, I'm gonna borrow a whole from it. So now it becomes 4. And the whole I'm borrowing, in this case, I'm gonna make 15 15ths. You notice I always just pick whatever the denominator is, because then it's a common denominator. It's easy to combine with the fraction we already had, 5 15ths, okay? So 5 became 4 and 15 15ths. I already had 5 15ths, so I'm going to combine these two. So 15 and 5, it's going to be 20 15ths altogether. So now I'm in a position that I can subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. 20 minus 12 is 8 15ths. And that's my answer. All right, let's practice some more. So at this point, I want everyone to try this one on your own. Go ahead and hit pause and then hit play to get your answer. All right, so again, going into it, we know we're gonna have to borrow just because that's what this lesson is on, but normally you wouldn't know. So you go along, get 8, and this is 56, minus 3 and 21, 56. You start subtracting, 9 minus 3 is 6, but you instantly notice 8 minus 21, I can't do that. So this is a prime example, we need to borrow. So the 9 is becoming an 8, and that whole we borrowed was 56, 56. We already had 856, so all together, it's 6456. You don't have to write that all down. I'm just showing it you that you can do that somewhere in your head or off to the side if you need to write it down. Because clearly you're not going to want to write down and erase it because it's not as easy to erase as I am doing. So now we do our subtraction. 8 minus 3 is 5. 64 minus 21 is 43. 56. We'll look to see if there's anything I can simplify it by, and there's not because there's 7 for 56, but 7 isn't going to 43. So this is our final answer. All right, so this one, similar situation. You go to subtract, and some people accidentally do this. They go 15 minus 3 is 12, 3/7. What do I do with that? Well, I'll just stick it on here. But this is not right because the problem is the 3/7 is being subtracted from the 15. I can't just tack it on as in like add on. It doesn't work, it's being subtracted, okay? So this is another example of I need some change, right? I have 15 whole bills and I need some quarters to be able to play the video games, if you will, okay? So that 15 I'm going to turn into a 14 because I'm going to borrow one of the bills to turn into change, into fraction change. And you can pick any denominator you want, right? Well, why wouldn't you pick the denominator we're already dealing with, right? So whatever denominator we're dealing with, that's the one I'm going to pick. So this is one whole, so it's going to be 7 out of 7. So 14 and 7 out of 7 is the same thing as 15. Just a really weird way to say 15, okay? But what's nice is now I can do my subtractions because I have some fraction to subtract from. So 14 minus 3, I get 11. 7 minus 3, I get 4 sevenths. And that's my final answer, okay? So if you have a whole number that's being subtracted and the subtraction part has a fraction, that whole number needs to get a fraction pulled out of it so that you can subtract from it. All right, I want you to try this one on your own and then hit play to check your work. So same thing here, I need to borrow from this 8, so it's become 7. What denominator am I going to pick? I'm going to obviously pick the one that we're already using so that it's a common denominator. I don't have to worry about changing it again. So it's 7 and 13 thirteenths. 7 and 13 thirteenths is 8, just a weird way of saying 8. Minus 10 thirteenths. So 7 is still 7. 13 minus 10 is 3 thirteenths. That's our answer. All right, so let's practice some word problems. The Native Americans' corn stalks grew to 7.5 feet, while the Pilgrims' corn stalks only grew to 4 3/4 feet because they did not know the secret. How much taller was the Native Americans? All right, I want you to go ahead and hit pause, see if you can work this one out on your own, and then hit play to check your work. All right, so hopefully you figured out its subtraction. It says how much taller, so we're looking for a difference, and difference is subtraction, but also this entire lesson is on subtraction, so that might have been a little bit of a giveaway as well. So I'm doing 7.5 minus 4 3/4. I need a common denominator, so that could be 4. So 7 2/4 minus 4 3/4. You start doing your subtraction, you may have subtracted the whole numbers, but hopefully when you got to the fraction part, you noticed 2 minus 3, can't do that. So I need to borrow from the 7. So the 7 is going to become a 6, and the extra whole is 4/4. So that 4/4 I'm going to combine with the 2/4 I already had. So 7 2/4 became 6 6/4. They're equivalent, same thing, it's just a weird way to write it so that now I can actually do my subtraction and get that it was 2 3/4 feet taller. That's my answer. All right, baby James weighed 14 pounds when he got on the Mayflower. When he got off, though, he was sickly and only weighed 10 3/8 pounds. How much weight did he lose? So I want you to go ahead and pause it. Try that one on your own. And if you're really bold, try the second part that says, what is this in pounds and ounces? I'll give you a clue. There's 16 ounces in a pound. Okay, so see if you can figure that out. Then hit play to check your work. All right, so again, hopefully you realize this whole lesson's on subtraction. But we're looking, how much weight did he lose? So this is a subtraction problem for sure. So we got 14 minus 10 3/8. So again, 14 doesn't have a fraction. It needs a fraction, so you can subtract that 3/8. So I'm going to turn it into 13 8/8, right? I'm going to pick that denominator we're already using so that I don't have to change it to some common denominator after that, just saving me a step. So I subtract 13 minus 10 is 3. 5/8 pounds is how much baby James lost, okay? So that's our first answer. Hopefully you got that. And then let's see if you try the second part. Let's check this out. So what is it in pounds and ounces? Well, we know it's 3 pounds because that's a whole number. But then 5/8, what is that in ounces? So remember when we did the time one before, we wanted to get it out of 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. Well, now we want to get it out of 16. 16 ounces in a pound, like I told you. 5/8 is pretty easy to turn into 16ths. Just multiply it by 2, and I get 10/16. So 10/16, since ounces are 16 ounces to a pound, that means it was 3 pounds, 10 ounces. So whenever you're trying to convert it into a certain unit, you need to know what it's out of, and that's what you need to make your denominator, because that's what it's out of. All right, the Santa Maria was the largest of the 3 boats at 114 1/4 feet long. The Nina and Pinta were both 49 3/8 feet long. How much bigger was the Santa Maria than the other 2? And I mean the other 2 combined, okay? So the other 2 combined, how much bigger is it than that one? All right, so I want you to go ahead, pause it, try this one on your own, and then hit play to see what your answer is. All right, so we want to take 114 1/4. We want to know how much bigger is it than these other 2, 49 3/8 plus 49 3/8 combined. Okay, so I put parentheses because I need to add up those 2 first. So when I add them up, 49 plus 49, I get 98. 3/8 plus 3/8 is 6/8. You can't simplify that at that point, which I would do, because if I simplify it, then I have a common denominator. You could have gone up to 8s, but it makes more sense just to simplify this to 3/4. So now we have our common denominator 4ths. So I go to start to subtract, and I notice 1 minus 3, this isn't going to work. Okay, so I need to borrow a whole from this. So this is 113. That whole is 4/4. So plus the 1/4 I already have is now 5/4. And now I can do my subtraction. Okay, so 113 minus 98. You do the math how you get 15. 5/4 minus 3/4 is 2/4, which can simplify to 1/2. So 15.5 feet longer than the other 2 combined. That's a lot longer. Much bigger ship. So that is subtracting mixed numbers with borrowing.